Here's everything you need to know about a conventional deadlift. The number one most important thing is
being strong.
If you were to guess being strong, you would be incorrect. The number one most important thing is building full body tension. That's the most important thing with heavy lifting in general, but especially with deadlifting. So we need to get every single muscle in our entire body as tight as we possibly can. Then the last thing that we do is move the weight. That's the biggest misconception, the biggest mistake that people make is they want to lift the weight first. They're all focused on the effort to lift the weight, but we need to set everything up the right way first, build the tension, and the last thing that we do is finally lift the weight. Lifting the weight is the easy part. So we need to build the tension first, and it's always going to start with our stance. So we come out wide like a sumo, or you can be super cool and do it like a conventional. So a conventional stance is going to be feet right below our hips, right? So if you were to be hanging from a bar, say a pull-up bar, and you just drop down to the ground, where your feet land is going to be a good idea where you want to be. So feet directly below your hip joints, that's going to produce the most amount of linear force. So we can come a little bit closer together. That's going to be a little bit more lower back, a little bit more posterior chain. We can go a little bit wider. That's gonna be a little bit more legs. There's not a right or wrong way to do it. You just gotta find which way works best for you. But a good starting position is feet directly below your hips. Again, if you're hanging from a bar, you just relax where your feet or your legs are gonna be right below your hips. That's where we wanna be. So we have our feet set. Stance, grip. So we have two different types of grips. We can do an alt grip. Show them an alt grip. One hand up, one hand down. Or we can do a hook grip, both hands down. But it's not a closed grip like this. A hook, we need to bring our thumbs over the bar. So bar, show him the hook. Boom, so he has the bar and then his fingers over his thumbs. So you can do either or. The strongest grip is probably gonna be an alt grip, all right? But hook grip is great too. That's what I use, that's what he uses as well. So we have our grip. We want our hands to be right outside of our hips. So set this up. We want as close to our body as we can without rubbing up on our legs. So the wider we go, it's just gonna lower our body closer to the ground. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to get as tall as we possibly can first. So bring our hands right below or right next to our hips. We're gonna squeeze the bar as hard as we possibly can. And this is our starting stance, right? So you can relax for a second. So now that we have this position, what we wanna do with our feet is we wanna grab our feet into the ground like eagle claws. So we're trying to use what's called a tripod foot stance. Tripod foot stance is we're gonna take the balls of our feet, the balls of our little toe, and our heels and make a little tripod triangle. That's where you wanna feel the center of pressure of this lift. So if we take all of the forces combined of your body, we wanna just combine them into that little triangle. So we're not trying to curl our toes, we're trying to use the arches in our feet to squeeze together and grab ourselves into the ground. And when we do that, when we're grabbed into the ground, it allows us to build more tension in our hips. So now we're grabbed into the ground. You can't see that he's doing this, but imagine if he's pushing his foot against mine, and then he's trying to rotate his feet out like this, rotate them out, and then back in. But since his feet are grabbed, then he's gonna rotate out. What is gonna rotate is, boom, the knees and the hips are gonna come a little bit out. That's gonna create more tension, more stability. So once we start moving this weight, the knee's not gonna be knocking around, the hip's not gonna be moving around. We're trying to eliminate all movement that's unnecessary stabilizing movement. So grabbing the feet in, and we're trying to rotate the feet out, but since they're grabbing, it's not gonna happen. We're trying to push our feet away like this, like we're trying to spread a towel on the floor if we're standing on a towel, trying to spread that apart. That's gonna build us the most amount of tension first. So now we have our feet locked in, we have our grip together. Now what we need to do from this position, we're gonna start up high with the hips up high. We'll bring this around, I'll show you guys this. So now his hips are up really, really high, and we're trying to pull up on the bar from this position. We don't want to drop the hips quite yet. So now he's going to use his lats right here to pull up on the bar and pull the bar closer into his body like this. So roll this bar all the way out. So imagine if I'm holding the bar like this, he's trying to pull it in, pull. So these muscles that are working to pull the bar in are the lats. That's going to keep the bar really, really close to the body of where we want to be. So we don't want the bar right up against the shins. We don't want the bar too far away. We're gonna pull the bar slightly away from the shins, so that when we move the bar, it doesn't hit our knees if we're too close. And if we're too far away, it's gonna be too much stress on the lower back. It's not what we want, right? So now we have the bar in a good position. We're pulling up on the bar with our lats, and we're pulling the chest up high, but the hips are still high as well. So now it's creating tension in the upper body. So we have tons and tons of tension right now. He's grabbing the feet in. Now we need to brace. You can stand up. Just stand up. You don't need to keep the bar down there, stand up. So now we need to brace, so we're trying to fill up our core with air, and then we need to bear down as hard as possible. So this is the most important thing when we're talking about bracing, is everything starts with the trunk of the tree, the core. So if the trunk of the tree is not the strongest and the most tense, the branches and the limbs are not gonna do what they need to do, and something's gonna break over time. So we need to breathe into our belly, into our obliques, into our lower back. We're not trying to breathe up and down. We don't wanna be taller when we're lifting. We wanna be smaller, right? What are the best powerlifters? These short little stubby guys, right? So we wanna try to make ourselves short and stubby. So when we breathe up, it's gonna pull our spine out of position. It's not where we wanna be, but it's also not gonna allow us to create the most amount of tension. So we're trying to breathe, trying to fill up my belly, right? Big belly, obliques, lower back, and then so I'm trying to push out and then squeeze. I'm bearing down like I'm about to punch him in the gut, and he's trying to brace that movement. So if you're wearing a belt, we're trying to break the belt off of us. So where there's two forces that are happening here. We have this force, we're trying to break the belt off, and then we have this force where we're bearing down, and they're colliding like this, and these two forces in opposing directions are creating tension and stability, and that's what we want. So now that he's back in our position here, hips up high, he's got the lats, he's got tension in the upper body, he feels it in his upper back and traps. Now he's gonna brace the core, and then slowly he's gonna pull his hips down as he pulls the chest up until he gets into a good, hang on, go back down to the bottom. So we're just going to our starting position. So hips up really, really high. Chest comes up as the hips go down to keep that tension. Now we're in a good starting position. Now you can push with the legs and stand it up. Stand it up. Good, put it back down. All right, so this is one of the key components. Now with the hips up really, really high, we need to lower the hips, but at the same time we need to reach the chest up. So if we have these opposing forces going like this, we can create the tension. Where if we just drop the hips down, we're gonna make that position shorter, we're gonna lose the tension. So imagine if like I'm holding onto something with a rope, right? The rope is really, really tight. The only way that's gonna come is if I'm pulling with tension on the rope. Where if the rope comes slack, I can pull and pull and pull, it's not gonna come. Or there's a little bit of tension, that pulling yanks, and we don't want these jerking, yanking motions. So as we pull the hips down, we don't drop them down. As we pull the hips down, we need to pull the chest up to keep that tension. So if we're really doing this the right way, as he really gets in the position, before he starts with light weights, before he starts to drive the bar up off the ground, the bar should slightly come up itself anyway. So do like you're doing like a chair deadlift. So hips up high, big brace. So now he's in this position, now he can drive the legs. Good. So as the weights get heavier and heavier and heavier, you're not gonna be able to just pull it up gently off the ground a little bit, but what's gonna happen is you're gonna get tighter and tighter and tighter, and then you can drive the feet down through the floor. And then as we go up to knees, so just go to the knees. So it's a leg drive to the knees, a leg drive to the knees, and then we finish with the hips. Boom. So if you start pulling with the hips too early, it's gonna be a lot on that finished position. It's gonna be a lot on that lockout. It's not gonna go so well. The lower back is gonna be taking a lot of that. It's not what we wanna do. So legs, legs, legs. We're pushing, pushing, pushing the bar, feet through the floor, and then when we get to the knees, that's when we squeeze the glutes, pushing the hips through, finishing the movement. That's our conventional deadlift.
Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Boom.